Good evening. This is Saturday, the 30th of May. I'm Michael Bagram, the Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson. As we move into level 3 on Monday the 1st of June 2020, many more millions of workers go back to work, and it is important to ensure that our staff know and understand the safety regulations. It's absolutely vital that the regulations that have been put out by the Department of Employment and Labour and the Department of Health are followed at all stages when people travel to work, come into the workplace, and whilst they're at work. Remember, the most important things is obviously the mask, the hand sanitizing, and the social distancing. And we need to ensure that this is kept up throughout the working day, and hopefully we can do as much as we can to ensure that staff travel to and from work safely and keep themselves virus-free. Now, we do need to remember that employers with over 500 staff, now that's not each workplace, that's an employer with over 500 staff. It might be in various workplaces. They have special and more onerous duties to follow. I'm not going to outline them here, but I would suggest very strongly that any employer with over 500 staff go to the regulations, take some advice if necessary, but go very carefully through those regulations so that the staff are completely protected in terms of those regulations. You don't want to be found wanting, and you don't want to have an inspector arrive and to point out to you that you've done something illegal. It could even be criminal. We are obviously fighting the issue about the criminality of the break of the regulations, but at this stage, the breach of the regulations could be a criminal offence. So as we go into level 3, many people will be taking more staff back, many more workplaces will be open, and at the end of the day, we need to be more and more vigilant about the reportage and about the safety officer. Every single firm, I believe, should actually have someone who becomes the person who is the point person as the safety officer, and we must have every single person at the end of the day looking after themselves. Everyone needs to understand the health and safety regulations. When we implement these regulations, we might need to also keep records of it. You might need to also ensure that if someone is displaying any symptoms, that you could get them checked out. I know most workplaces now will have the handheld thermometer, which you could hold towards a person's forehead, and you could tell whether they are of a regular temperature. And I think that's also important, and we need to implement that on a regular basis. So even if someone comes in the morning, leaves the workplace and comes back an hour or two later, test them again. And then no one will be able to point any finger towards you or the organization. Now, unfortunately, and very much so, our Minister of Employment and Labour has not really done us proud. I think he is wrong in a whole lot of instances. We've seen him wrong in the past. I've accused him of terminological inexactitudes, and at the end of the day, I think the Minister is not playing the game properly. You will recall right in the beginning, the Minister said that we can't force people to take leave. Well, he was wrong in terms of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. He said if people aren't working because of the lockdown, they must get their salary. Well, he was wrong again because of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Well, we now have him again, and he's now did a new press conference and quite a few clangers at that press conference, and I think he's doing his utmost to create a negative environment between employer and employee. And I'll tell you what he said, and I'll read out from a press release on that. He said that a negative, and he is creating this negative environment, but he said that employees have a right to refuse to return to work on the 1st of June if they have a reasonable belief that their employers have not put in place required precautions against the spread of the virus. Now, that's understandable, except one would expect the Minister to have said, please first report it to the Department of Labour, the Department of Health, or to the safety officer But don't just stand at home and say, I'm not coming to work, I have a reasonable suspicion or a belief. What is that? How do you prove a reasonable suspicion or belief? I don't know. So what he's really doing is encouraging people to stay at home. What he doesn't say is that no work, no pay in terms of the basic conditions of Employment Act. So people will quote the minister and say, I have a reasonable belief that they're not implementing the safety conditions, but unfortunately, then they're going to have to then prove that reasonable belief, and also they're going to be very upset when they don't get paid at the end of the month. And obviously the business can't afford to pay people who aren't working. He also said that those staff of 60 years old or more and with comorbidities should not come to work and should not return to work. Now, again, how is the minister going to decide who should and who shouldn't come back to work, and what is a true comorbidity? I, for instance, am over 60, I have diabetes, but I've gone back to work. I want to earn a living, and I'm very careful that I don't socially get too close to anyone. I keep my mask on, and I make sure that I'm properly sanitized. Now, I want to earn the living, and to go and tell people they should not come to work, again, he must explain that that's true. They don't have to come to work. But he must explain they won't earn a salary whilst they're staying at home. He's also gone on, and it's horrific to think of this, and saying that they should declare disputes with the CCMA if they're unhappy with something. Well, the CCMA is overcrowded. They are bogged down with hundreds and hundreds and thousands of disputes. How can you just encourage people to go off to the CCMA and declare disputes? What about trying to sort things out at work? What about mediation in the internal processes? There are grievance procedures, and you could complain to the department if you really think something's wrong. I don't think it's right just to implore people to go off to the CCMA. I don't know how the CCMA are going to do this. I don't think they can cope in any event. So can you imagine an extra 10,000, 20,000 cases going there on the back of the minister's invite to go and complain? He's urged the trade unions and the shop stewards to come down heavily and to explain to the department where things are going wrong. Yes, it's good that they're the eyes and ears, but at the end of the day, we don't want to cause that trouble. We don't want disputes to arise. There are going to be medical officers. Let the medical officers sort these things out. Let's raise grievances if we can. Let's internalize a lot of these disputes so that we can get on with working. I don't know what the real problem is, but let's get on with working. And I implore the minister to let's look at the workplace and let's make sure the workplace is peaceful, safe, healthy and clean. And thank you for listening to me. It's Michael Bagram. I'm the Democratic Alliance Labour spokesperson on the 30th of May 2020, on the cusp of number 3 stage of the lockdown. Thank you.